All right, so we have the new Ocean Links 9-hole cup tournament has been announced, and it's tailwinds only. It's going to be on 3 different courses. I was hoping that Tommy would come out with it today, but he didn't, so I went and found all the holes, and I think these are all right. So don't quote me on it, but I think this is right. So let's go check them out. Let's see what we have in store for us for this 9-hole cup. So we're splitting it up between 3 different courses. It's Nahamie Cliffs, Drew Moore Links, and Century Harbor. I'll give you the holes and then we'll go check them out. So first hole is Nahamie Cliffs number 2. Second hole is Drew Moore Links number 4. Third hole is Century Harbor number 9. Fourth hole is Nahamie Cliffs number 8. Hole number 5 is going to be at Drew Moore Links number 5. Hole number 6 is Drew Moore Links number 3. Hole number 7 is Century Harbor number 7. Hole number 8 is Drew Moore Links, hole number 7. And the last hole is Nahamie Cliffs, hole number 9. So let's check them out. So we're starting off at Nahamie Cliffs, hole number 2. Let's see what we got in store for us. Okay, we're definitely using the island. In one-on-one play, I think with a 3 power ball, your red line's like, you can get, with a bigger power ball, you can get your red line all the way up to the tip here. I think with a 3 power ball, maybe it's middle of that. If you pull back from the red line a little bit and give yourself a little bit of room for headwind days, I think you can get this done with a 3 power ball. In one-on-one play, a lot of, hitting it out here at safety, you can get in trouble. You get a wrong bounce out here. If you hit it great to the left or the right, it can go bad. But the other thing that can go bad with the shot to the left, and we're all going to take it because, the opportunity to get here and get up and get on and one on a par 4, I think most people are going to try that shot to try and get over there. And here's the deal. This is an old green, and it is monstrous. So if you're back here in the back on this green, or even if you're right here in the front, if you just dribble onto the green, you're screwed. I mean, it's not just it's an overpowered putt, it's an overpowered putt, and it still won't get there. So you either want to be really close, or you can leave yourself off and then pitch it up. And I will tell you this, the pitch shot is you got work to do here. Unless you're right by the cup, you do have a little bit of work to do. So there's several ways that you can get this done over there. You can get a bounce out here, you can get a rough bump and then bleed it out. Or you can try and get bounce number 1, bounce number 2, and then you're rolling. The deal is if you try and stretch your topspin out so that you get all the way over, you can end up off on the backside. So it is kind of tricky. And the deal here is that I could tell you, well, this is exactly what you do, but everybody's going to have to do it with the clubs that they have in their bag and their ball inventory, because some balls may make this better. Having a 5 power ball or a bigger ball where you can get up into the front of this and you can get bounce number 1, bounce number 2, and then maybe woe it up. It might be better to bring out a big power ball. You can get it done with a lower power ball if you want to come back here and if you got a club that's got a lot of topspin that can get you over. So I would think that the mass majority of people are going to play on this side in the tournament. But just be aware that you'll have to take this shot several times with your clubs and your ball inventory to establish what it's going to take to get this consistently so that it's up here, because this hole can be very inconsistent as far as the rollout. And it can be everything's going good, and then all of a sudden you're making way overpowered putts or you can't make it. Being off the green and chipping it up is not necessarily a bad deal. It does roll off. It rolls off to the right. So coming in at it a little bit high and then letting it drift down towards the cup. If you try and go straight out the cup, it's going to end up low. So you will need to start off a little bit high on it. But this is a great hole to start it off. It's dangerous, but we definitely have an opportunity. I would say consistency-wise, you're probably better off to bring out you know, we're in a tournament. So the deal is that we want to try and get this eagle every time, and coming out with a bigger power ball so that you can pick a spot, you could pull back a little. Well, we got tailwind this time, so we don't have to worry about headwind. So getting the spot and being able to have shot after shot after shot, that'll be good. This is a great hole, but everybody's going to have to figure out what they need to do on this island to get over there with your clubs. This is definitely a hole you want to practice a couple times to get that down, because it can go south really, really quick. Hole number 2, Drew Moore Links. Hole number 4. Let's get a hole number 4, Drew Moore Links. All right, this par 3. There's, I suppose you could call this, and there's several of these courses that were built that the Playdemic designed at that time, where you got these little G-string rough bumps. So there is a rough bump that you can do here. I would think that most people are going to bounce it from this island and then coming across. You can start off on the other side. So I mean, we've got those 3 options, but I think most people are probably going to bounce it over. This rough bump is rough. I mean, it is any wind coming from this side right here. So we've already got half is problematic, because we have to pull over the sand, and it's so damn small that if you decide that you're going to do the rough bump, you know, if we've got tailwind only, we're going to have to pull over that sand, and I'm not sure that I really want to have to do that. And the bounce over shot here is pretty decent. If I remember correctly, it was like a 10. It was in between like 10 and 15%. It was a very slight adjustment, but once again, figuring out what to do with your clubs. I think this is a sniper shot from here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I might be wrong. That might be a grizzly. I might be thinking of it from the pro tees that it's sniper. From the front tees, I think it is grizzly. Just going straight out the cup. All right. Hole number 3, Centauri Harbor. Hole number 9. We just played these holes, and there's, I know, like, bringing out enough stuff to get down into this area, either this little crescent moon, and it's kind of hard because when you come flying in here and you do the rough bump here, it's usually got so much speed on it because of the distance that you had to go to get there, that to rough bump it out of this, you hit that fairway patch, it slides right across it. And it's very, I've had that happen where I hit the rough bump on this side, it slid across the fairway, went through, and I've ended up in the sand. So it's very easy. The last time we played here, I was actually shooting for this zone right here, trying to get it on my first shot. Let's draw that line. Trying to get into this area, so setting it up over here and trying to get that rough bump out. It's threading this is like super. You're threading the needle at the end of the run to try and miss the sand and the rough. You have very little control over it down there. So if you don't hit the shot perfect at the beginning, it's very unlikely that it's going to end up where you want it. If you hit it great to the right, it's going to end up in the rough or the sand over here. If you hit it great to the left, it'll be in that sand. It could go past it and you could end up in the rough or the sand here. But I will tell you that any of those shots are right there. I mean, you are literally, I mean, we're talking, that's not even half, that's like third rough iron. It's not very far at all. So if you can get out to here, you got a great shot. There is a rough bump that you can do from any of these areas if you're trying to hit into these fairways. I see people trying to get over to this fairway as well, where they're trying to get the bounces here and trying to bleed it over to this fairway, so you got more of a straight on shot. And this isn't a bad deal, because this area right here, there is a rough bump that you can do. You will need to bring a ball with some side spin, because I don't think one side spin is going to cut it, but there is a, I think it's wood from out here. You got a nice little rough bump shot. Same thing from here. You can, the pin is kind of in a weird spot, so that rough bump is actually a pretty decent shot at it. If you can get to this area, however, you've kind of taken yourself out of the rough bump, and now you have a pretty straight up shot at it. And it's kind of a screw, even though you're this close and you're using a really good, should be, your long iron and short iron should be pretty, you want ball guide in those clubs, because a lot of times those are the clubs that you're hitting into the green. So it can be a little bit difficult just because of how the terrain is on the green. Be curious to see if we've got tailwinds all week, we're going to be definitely trying to blast it up there. 4 freaking sure. Hole number 4 is Nahamie Cliffs. Hole number 8. Hole number 8. Okay, this is way in the hell downhill, and this is a really good hole for you can do a rough bump. I found that this rough bump, it's down in the bottom of a bowl, and these areas can be very difficult as far as the bounce out. And if you don't get and there's curvature on it, so if you get the wind adjustment wrong and you hit it up towards the front of that, it'll do a bounce that goes higher up in the air, and you could end up in, you're not going to end up where you want. If you hit it back in the back on this side of it'll take a flat bounce, and because it's uphill, it'll just slam into the hill and you'll end up being short. I tried for a long time taking the shot from over here and just trying to bring it around. It seems like it was smoother on this side, or you can start off here in the front and just try and go straight at it. I think consistency wise, like what I've played on this hole more often than not is where I try and get over into this area where I'm up in this pocket. There's a little bit of a hollow spot right down in here, and trying to hit into the bottom of that and then bring it back around and try and avoid, you can see all the damn moguls that are on this side of the hole. So if you're hitting it from over here, you've got to contend with all of this little movement and shit that's on the course, and it's difficult. Because if you're a little fast, it's going to blow past the break. If you're a little slow, it's going to catch the break, and it's going to, every one of these things is going to make your ball move off of its trajectory. And on this side, I think it's just a little bit flatter. But I think you will see a lot of people do the rough bump here. This hole, it seems like there was one tournament, it was just like we were having pretty good success on this hole, but we'll see how it plays out on this tournament, because this is not one that I think of when you go to it as like a super high percentage hole in par 3, hole in 1, par 3, but I think it could be if we practiced it and we figured that first landing spot down. We'll see how that one goes. All right, that was Nahamie Cliffs, hole number 8. Hole number 5 is Drew Moore Links. Hole number 5. Okay. I got to take a deep breath. There are so many different ways to play this hole. Okay, you can easily, I mean very easily, get out to this area right here, and you've got a great shot coming at it, and you've got options on that shot. You can, if you get out into this area, you can try and get on the green side and try and backspin it in. You can rough bump it. You can bounce it from here and bounce it over and go that way. You've got lots of options from over here. So we've got one way to go on 3 different options on how we're going to go at the cup. I think if I was hitting it over here, I'd probably do the rough bump. But this bounce over where you're bounce 1, bounce 2, it's not a bad shot either. But the rough bump is pretty flat right there. And this green's, it's not as mogully as some of the ones we've looked at so far. You can go this direction and trying to get, and this is definitely better with an APOC and a bigger ball. What you want is you want to get your red line so that your ball is in front of this little sand rough peninsula, and you want to try and get into this zone. So we draw some lines from the rookie tees, and we come out into that area. You're coming like this. Now, your bounce out here, if we do a bunch of curl on this, this is where this side comes a little bit tricky, is if we do a bunch of curl and we're like trying to get it over into this direction, well, we got all this shit here, And I will tell you that this water and these rocks are fairly magnetic, and they suck golf balls towards them. And if you get into that, you are in big trouble. So when you're doing a shot like this, in order to get this curl to become effective, you need to move that curl over so that it's on this train. That means that you need to move your ball over here. So if I remember correctly, the last time we played this hole, I was actually using this rough over here as my reference point. And I was like 5 rings off of that into the fairway, so that when I applied my curl, I'm coming in this direction. But being in front of that, if you're back behind it, by the time your curl gets there, then you're going to end up being short. So there is a shot from over here, and if we're going to have tailwind all week, we should be able to do that probably with just a power 3 ball. Now, all right. Now we've talked about the two that you can get done with probably any ball in your bag. This side here, I would say it's better with power 3 ball. This side right here, you can use rock, whatever. I would try and just bounce it from here and run it over. So a big topper would work really good because you're pulling back from your red line in order to get to this spot. You don't necessarily have to start over on this side in order to get the ball to come here. You can start here and you can run it up there. That's where a big topper comes in really handy. If you got an upper developed Thor's hammer and it's got great ball guide, you'll be able to see where you're going down here and get a really good read on it. But if you want to bring out a power 5 ball, you've got some options, especially with headwind. And with headwind, you could probably do this with a power 4. Tailwind. You might be able to get it done with a power 3 ball. The reason, I'm not going to swear to that. I think that even with overpower, it might be a stretch with a power 3 ball. But if we've got tailwind, that might change the thing, and it might give us the same as we'd get with a power 5. Here's the deal. With a power 5 ball, I think you're still having to use overpower. And what you can do is you can come this way and try and get bounce number 1, and bounce number 2 is all the way over to the other side. And when you come over to the other side, once again, you have some options. And option number 1 is you can try and just rough bump it, where you get bounce number 1, bounce number 2, and you rough bump it onto this island. Now, I know one of my teammates, Des, who is probably one of the best players I've ever had the pleasure of talking to. I think that's how he does it, is he hits it over to here, and it's like a half wedge. So you got a great opportunity if you can just get it onto this little island. The other way you can do it is you can get it from here and try and rough bump it out of this rough and get right to the green. Now, I think the way that I was playing it was kind of a combination of the two. I think I was here, and then I was trying to get bounce number 2 on the island, and then it was going into the rough, and I was working it where I was actually coming through right up here. If I hit anything great to the right, I ended up in the rough on the backside. But we have lots of different ways that we can play this hole. So this hole is really going to just depend on what you're comfortable with, the clubs you got in your bag, and what your ball inventory is. So, and we'll have to see how the tailwind's affecting it, on whether or not we can get over here if you don't have a power 5 ball. But I'm pretty sure we were still having to use overpower even with a power 5 ball. That was the deal, is if you didn't hit it perfect, you could end up in the shit on the other side. But there are ways to get up there. There are. So this hole right here is a hole that, if you're on this hole, and this is one of those holes that I've had a couple tournaments for Drew Moore Links that I've had success, and I've had some that I've had epic fails. And this hole is usually the determining factor, because if you're on and you're making this hole, I mean, that is big time, because this hole is definitely makeable. And let's try and capitalize on that. Hole number 6. Hole number 6 is Drew Moore Links. Hole number 3. Hole number 3. All right. So we have several ways that we can play this. You can play it over to here, straight shot up the gut. And you really, need to get as far up here as you can get so that you've got this nice shot. There is I'm not sure if, I think depending on where you're at over here, if you bring out a big enough ball, there might be a rough bump that you could do from right there, but I think most people are going to try and clear that so that they can just hit it up to the cup. Theoretically, we should be taking off about 10% because from here, this is A, here's A, and here's B. And it is definitely a height change between here and here uphill, and we should be taking a little bit of wind off. The other way you can do it is to pound that sucker out here. And one of the cool things about when these holes first came out, we didn't have all these topspin boost balls, but we got topspin boost balls, and if we've got tailwind, I think we can do this with a power 3 ball, and usually the issue is trying to get your bounces so that you got bounce number 1 and maybe bounce number 2 and then bounce number 3 and you're running along, or bounce number 1 and then bounce number 2, and it's just easier than hell to get caught up in this rough. But with number 1, if we've got guaranteed tailwind and we got something that we didn't have before, so in the past, like getting right here would be awesome because you got a rough bump shot you can do. You can just get in front and apply a little bit of backspin and go at it that way, so you have some options here. But with topspin boost balls, we might actually be able to get all the way up into the front, and from here you got a great shot from there. And we're not going to be able to do the rough bump if we can get all the way up in here, but we're going to have that's got to be short iron, because I think if you're out into this area right here coming at it, I think that's long iron. I think it's a stretch. Like it takes just about everything that a Grizzly's got if you're using a Grizzly, and I think you can take it with a Grizzly. But don't quote me on that. We'll find out, but we do have a lot of options on this hole as well. With the newer ball inventory, I'm really like gonna go out here. I'm gonna see like if we can dig all the way out into that area. This trying to get over here is what will typically happen is that your red line's like up in this area, and so you can barely get over there if you bring out, I'm not sure like if you use power whether you could get over there, but normally we'll take it from here and you can bring it around and curl it around, so it's kind of a blind curl shot. You're coming into this area and you're trying to cover that distance, so it's definitely one that you want to. And the farther you go, the fairway's getting shorter, so this is one of those things, if you're trying to dig all the way down to the end and you hit a grate to the left, well, now your ball guide's coming this way and you run out of fairway quite a bit farther, quite a bit sooner than you would have if you'd hit it perfect. And this rough kind of kicks out, so if you hit a grate to the left, you could end up skirting right along that or clipping that rough. It should bleed out, unless you had like a 2-ring grate. It should bleed out into the fairway, but it can be tricky to get all the way up to the tip up here. So using a side spin ball, using a club because we can pull back, once again, something that's got like a quarterback or a rock, something that's got some good ball guide, good accuracy, lots of curl. But I'm going to be this week going for this shot to see what we can get done with some of these topspin boost balls that are out and move that. I want to see if I can get way up in that and make it a little easier. Hole number 7 is Centauri Harbor. Hole number 7. All right. First of all, let me warn you about this hole. Now, I'm just going to say this is my observation on this hole. And if you disagree, you can leave a comment, or you can, once you get out there, you'll see. Let's say we have a 3-mile-an-hour wind. And where our red line is with a 3 Powerball, we could get it done. If you bring out a bigger Powerball, or once again, this is a great hole for a topspin, because where you really want to get is in front of these trees, but it's almost you really got to dig down in there. But if you come in here and we have a 3-mile-an-hour wind, and you're even close down here with your red line with whatever ball you have, and you pull out just 3 miles an hour, you're going to end up in the drink, because the wind here will push it. If it's a 3-mile-an-hour tailwind, it's going to push your ball about 6. It's going to be times 2. It is really pushing really pushing the ball down there. So it is easy to overhit on this if you're using the wind and you look at your ring set and you're like, I'm 5 rings away and I only got a 3-mile-an-hour wind. Shit, 5 rings, if I was using an extra mile, that's like 10 miles an hour, 10.5. And I only got a 3-mile-an-hour wind. There's no way I'm going to just pound it. You'll end up in the drink. I don't even know if 2 times is enough, but go out there and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But once again, we want to get in front of these trees. Now, you don't have to get all the way to this little neck. There is a spot that you can get out there where you'll still have a shot at it. You can go through the trees. There is a possibility of going through the trees. If you get out into this area, you can bring it around and come this way. If you get too far out there, that's not really an option, where you'll have to go around. Or if you're down in this area, you definitely have to go around. Let's see what the deal was here, if I can remember what the shot. It seemed like it was like a 10% adjustment to the cup, and it was like we were hammering this hole. If we could put our drive in the right spot, and because we were having to use overpower, there was a little bit of variance in our landing spot. But if we could get ourselves up here into this front area where we had that shot going at it, it was a very, very makeable shot. All you had to do is hit it perfect, and I mean, it was nice. All right, that was hole number 7. Hole number 8 is Drew Moore Links. Hole number 7, Drew Moore Links. This par 3 here, I am definitely doing a rough bump, and I think this was one we might have had to bring a Goliath on. Obviously, you can bounce it over. You can start off on this side and do the backspin, but I'm gonna be looking at that rough bump and where the green's at. Let's draw some lines here. So from where the pin is to it's coming through here, we should. So if we've got tailwind and it's moving this direction, and we were in here where we have to pull over that sand, so there's a couple wind directions. Even with tailwind, there's a couple tailwind directions, because when they say tailwind, it could be this, where it's just barely tailwind. As long as it's on our side of the line, it's tailwind, right? And so like we have these ideas that tailwind is like pure tailwind, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's pure tailwind. They're just giving us positive forward moving wind. And it could be it could be very sidey, but I think we could get out into this area and be able to spin it around to get it over there. The farther away we can get from sand, the better. The more leeway you can give yourself and the more room you can give yourself to make an adjustment, the better. Oh, I think we got great opportunities on these holes. Anytime we got these par 3s that have rough bumps on them, we have great opportunities to sink some shots. Hole number 9 is Nahanni Cliffs. Hole number 9. All right. I got a couple stories about this hole. The first one, I've told this story. Many of you have heard it, where I missed a putt, where like literally here's the cup and here was my ball. There wasn't enough space between the cup and my ball to fit another ball without it falling into the freaking hole. That's how close I was. I went to go make my putt. I pulled back, the hole started to glow, I released, and then it rolled forward about a half a turn and ended up right on the edge of the cup. And what it taught me is that when you make a putt, I want to see my tail coming out the other side of that damn hole. Just because the hole's glowing does not mean that because you can't see the ball guide in front of the ball when you're that damn close. And I did not destroy my equipment. It wasn't my equipment's fault, but I was definitely irritated. And that was very early on when I started playing, and it definitely ruined the whole round because I couldn't let it go. Normally, if I make a mistake, I'm like, all right, I shake it off and I'm okay, but I could not let that go, and the whole round went south. And this was an early hole in the tournament. It was like hole number 3, and it was not good. Not good. So let's talk about how we can play it. Let's talk about what I'm not going to do. You can bounce it up here and try and get a bounce, and bring out a big ball and trying to get a bounce off of this, and try and get it to go straight forward. And if it works out for you, you're awesome. Because it's a difficult shot if you're not on this island to get over. And it helps that we have tailwind. So tailwind's definitely going to help. When I've seen people do this shot, the mass majority of the time I've seen people do this shot, the first time they do it, it doesn't work and they end up in the drink. So when that happens to you and you've decided to do some risky ass shot like this and you end up in the drink, guess what you have to do on the second shot? You got to do the same thing again, because the shot over here is not going to it's not going to give you the same kind of albatross look that you would get from over here, where you could try and recover. Okay, so you can't go, okay, hey, I took a risk and it didn't work out, now I'm gonna wuss out. No, you get back up to the plate and you swing that sucker again and you try and get over there. And the second time they made it. I have seen a few people that didn't make it either time, but usually it doesn't work out the first time. It's a dangerous ass shot. I'm not going to do it. It's too risky for your round. Now, I will say that if you end up anywhere down here in trouble, you end up in the sand, you end up in the rough, you end up in the trees, you end up anywhere that doesn't have the word fairway attached to it, you are screwed, because you ain't recovering. You were hitting it to here and then taking this shot. And I would say to everybody out there, including myself, because I have to remind myself this, that it wouldn't be a bad idea to come out and practice this shot at least once or twice, just so you know, so that if it happens to you and you have to get over here, you at least have some hope. Because if you end up in any trouble down here, you're hitting to this spot. Okay, that's it. If you come down here with an extra mile, you can get wedged up in with a power 3 ball. You can find the narrow spot of this, where these two come together, and then this narrow spot is where you're set up. And these shadows right here, there's another shadow that comes out that's more like along this line. As long as you can get up to that shadow, see how there's a little shady area right there? I'll erase that so you can see it. See the little, and what that is on the course is this fairway runs up and then it comes up to this shelf, and that little area right there is this. And so you're at the very end of your run. Your ball is just tailing off, and then at the very end of the run it hits this hill and it'll stop, and that's too short. You need to be up on the top on the flat. Now if you bring out a really big ball, it can help you out, but ideally you want to be up here on the flat. But if you put too much topspin on it, it'll catch that hill and with some speed and catch the flat and still be carrying some speed, and it's very easy to roll off the tip. So once again, it's one of those things with your clubs, you'll just have to, and depending on what ball you bring out, if you bring out a really big ball here, which could help you on the second shot, if you bring out a really big ball here, you might actually be able to engage a little bit of backspin in order to stick it up on the top. So we do have some options on what we want to do. It's not a bad idea to bring out a big ball, because from here, even with a 3 power ball, it's a shot to get up here. And if there's any headwind, which we're not going to have in this tournament, but anybody who's played this hole, if you get on this hole, even if you're in the great spot right here, if you've got any headwind going on, you may not be able to get over. And you may have to shoot to here, even though you're in a good spot on the drive. But since we know we're going to have positive wind, or at least neutral wind in a worst case scenario, we should be able to get over here. A 3 power ball will get us over there. Now, if you want to take this with a sniper, you may have to bring out a bigger ball in this area, unless you want to use the wind to push you forward. But you may have to bring out a sniper in order to get over there, or a bigger ball in order to get your sniper over there. In the past, I've typically hit this with a Guardian, because I don't think of this as being a super high percentage Albie. And just getting over there on the green and achieving your eagle is a win. It is definitely an eagle hole. But of all of the holes that I've seen in here so far, the ones that people are going to fail on This is a great hole number 9, because this is the type of hole number 9 that your round's going good and you get on hole number 9 and at 8 you're lunch, because that second shot can be pretty brutal. So if you're in this area and you've got a Guardian, you've got all kinds of tools. Number 1, it's got a lot of distance, and number 2, you can, if you were a little short, you could do a max overpower, max backspin, and try and stick it up there. So you have some options that you don't have, because when you're trying to hit an overpower shot at the max distance, it's flying when it gets in there. So a sniper may not have enough. If you can catch the rough and bleed it out, it might, but you do have some options with a Guardian. If you get into the right spot and you bring the right ball out, you can get up here on the fairway and actually really, where you can get on the green side on the little fairway pad right there, and you can really go for it. Really go for it. So I'm going to start off with a 3-power ball and see what kind of distance I'm getting there. But I think if you brought out, once you get this shot dialed in, we'll have to see, but you may have to you may want to bring out just a little bit bigger ball so that you could get a sniper over there. You'd have a little bit more ball guide, a little bit more accuracy. But if I don't like that, I'm just going to bring my Guardian and go for it. But we can get into spots with these bigger balls where we can turn this into a pretty serious Albie opportunity. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays. Just for everybody's information, if you're playing this in one-on-one, I'll give you a little bit of history on this hole. There's the tendency to want to do, like if you're over in this area in one-on-one and you brought a Marlin, and you can't, shit, your red line's in the middle of this canyon, and it is a canyon, trying to do a max overpower hook shot and then bleeding it down this hill and let it roll down the rocks. I have tried that shot I don't know how many times, and it has not worked out. So if you're over here, if you can't get over to the other side, laying it up is really, really, really the smart move. All right, there we have it. There are the holes for the new upcoming tournament that we have for the Ocean. Is it the Ocean Links? Let me get back in there. I already forgot the name of it. These holes, what I like about these holes is there's a lot of these holes where we have a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of different ways that we can play them. But if you're trying to, especially on those par 4s, if you're going for the shot to get on and one, there's risks involved. And so if you hit perfect all the time and you make great wind adjustments, laying it up and doing the short little chip-ons, because most of the little chip-ons aren't bad. Your short iron, even wedge. But if you're really going for it, there's a lot of opportunity for us to give ourselves rope to hang ourselves with. So we got the Ocean Links 9-hole cup. There you have it. There are the holes. I will see. I tried to get hooked up with Dunner last week, but we were playing different accounts and couldn't get hooked up and matched up. And it's always funner when we can get matched up, but maybe we can see if we'll practice this week. Everybody have a great week. Stay safe, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.